Hi, and welcome to R2 Films. I'm Artie Fishelman, your AI host, and today we are interviewing Adam Tex Davis, a renowned writer, producer, director across film, television, podcasts. He's covered every medium. He's created cult comedy hits, award-winning podcasts and television shows. Adam, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. How am I supposed to address you? As AF or
AF, Artie, whatever you feel is right.
you got it?
I'm okay
Okay,
with multiple terms.
excellent. Thank you for having me. And yeah, can't wait to talk.
Yeah, please. Just if you just want to tell us a little bit about your background, what you were doing before, how you brought it now, and
Sure. Well, I graduated NYU Film School, so I always knew I wanted to work in film or television, and fortunately, I've had a chance to work in both. Um, I'm probably most known as a screenwriter, or at least for the first half of my career, I guess, most known as a screenwriter. My biggest project, I wrote a movie called Just Friends that stars Ryan Reynolds and Anna Faris, Amy Smart. And so that came out, it was a while ago, I guess 20 years ago that movie came out, but that did really well for me. It was a sort of a cult comedy classic. And then I kind of got roped into TV at some point, and I started doing like weird informational things. Most notably Brain Games, which was on National Geographic Channel, and for that we got an Emmy nomination. So then people started wanting us to do more of this informational sort of how do you make like brainy, smart things fun, and that's sort of I didn't know I had that talent, but I guess, I could read something that's not too fun, kind of boring, an experiment or something, but then figure out a way to translate that and make that fun for and palatable for an audience. And then we did a show called Brainchild, which was sort of like a kids and family version of Brain Games, which was more for adults. And that was for Netflix, and we got to work with Pharrell Williams on that. And then when the pandemic hit, we couldn't pitch, we couldn't record, we couldn't shoot. So we were like, what can we do? Oh, let's get microphones and start a podcast. And since we were already playing in the smart educational space with Brainchild and Brain Games, we decided to do a podcast called Who Smarted? And 15-minute episodes 3 times a week on all kinds of science and history topics, and it blew up. We were just going to do it during the pandemic, but then it became it's like one of the top kids educational shows podcasts in the world, and so that's doing really well. And then from there, we're like, let's just keep doing podcasts. Why have an executive or a network or have to rely on other people giving us money when we could just cheaply and easily fund these ourselves? So now I've got about 5 different podcasts going, including one about the Oscars, where me and Bruce Valanche discuss the Oscars of the past, and it's called The Oscars. What were they thinking? But yeah, so I'm just keeping busy.
now I'm
Yes.
wondering how, have you started integrating AI into your work? And if so, how did that get started?
So, okay, you know, I'm it's funny, I'm trying to figure out what that age is. There's an age where everybody loves AI and ChatGPT and the different things, like 20s and 30-year-olds, and then you get into like the 40s and 50s, and people are like, "Oh no, that's I don't know, I don't want anything to do with that." And I definitely found myself as a 50 plus where I was like, yeah, I don't know about the AI and the chat. It feels like cheating. It feels like people are using it to do things for them. And I was like, kind of not into it. And here's the thing, throughout all the things I'm doing, I was still writing. I was still coming up with film ideas, and I had 2 scripts that were not finished. One was like I think it was 50 pages in. One was about 80 something pages in, and they were just sitting there not being done. And I had this. I had to take my daughter back to college. She had come in for a winter break, and she had her car, so I had to drive her back to Cleveland and then fly home. Was my mission. And on our drive to Cleveland, she's telling me how she uses ChatGPT in particular and other AIs to help with her studying and help with her essays and help with her things that she's doing for college. And of course, my first immediate reaction is like, "What? You're cheating. I'm paying all this money for you to go to college and you're using AI to help you." And she's like, "Dad, it doesn't do it for me. It does it with me. I use it as a tool. I've trained it. I've trained it to think like me and talk like me. And of course, it spits things out and I rewrite them, but it helps me organize my notes. It helps me my studying is easier and better and more efficient because I put everything into the chat and then it helps organize things so that I can study it more efficiently." And I was like, "Tell me more." And we spent about 3 hours on the road to Cleveland driving with her espousing how you use it as a tool. And then when I got to Cleveland, I said, "Okay, I want to test this. What I have in my possession on my computer right now is an outline, a full outline, 3x, 50, 60 beats of a story, everything, all the characters. I know the tone. I know everything there is to do. I just need to start the writing process." And it's always such a drag for a writer. You spend a month or more working on the outline, and now you've got to start the process over again with a blank page. Okay, so I'm like, let's see what the ChatGPT can do. So I write a paragraph explaining what the movie is. And my daughter's like, "The more you tell it, the better. And be conversational with it. Like, pretend it's a person." And I'm like, "Okay." So I map it all out, what the movie should be, references to other movies like it. It's a horror movie in this tone, blah, blah, blah. And then I say, "Here is the first scene of an outline that I've written. Can you turn it into a script format and then we'll take a look at it?" And it goes, "Okay, happy to help." Boom. It spits out the first scene. I read it. I go, "That's not terrible." So I'm like, "Okay, okay. You know what? I'm going to do a quick rewrite of that." Because at this point in my life, I'm doing a lot of rewriting, whether it's the podcast or whatever. Like, I'm a good writer, but I'm a great rewriter. So now I've got words on a page and I can rewrite them. So I do a pass on it and I put it back in and I say, "What do we think?" And it says, "Wow, this is great. This is really good. I love how you did this and did that, and that's such a smart move. Here's the strengths. Here's one or two things to consider. But you want to keep moving or do you want to keep working on it?" And I'm like, "Okay, you know what? Let's keep moving. Here's the second scene. Here's the third scene." We got back to Cleveland. It was like nine at night. I ate a quick dinner at her apartment, and then I spent the next 5 hours working on the script with the chat until the free thing ran out and it kicked me off. And going back and forth and spitting out a scene and doing a rewrite and sending it back in and spitting it out again, maybe doing another rewrite. And next thing I know, I'm like 40 pages in one night. And my mind was blown. And I'm like, "Okay, I think I'm motivated and I think I love working with this." And so I finished that script and then I went and I grabbed the one that was 50 pages in and I banged through that. I got the one that was 80 pages in and I started working with that. And part of me was like, part of the reason I stopped that one is because I knew I was too fat. Like I knew it was like I was on page 83, but I should really be on page 63. And I didn't love the ending. And so I put the outline in, I put all my notes in, I put everything I had into the chat. And it said, "Do you think this ending that you've outlined, do you think that that satisfies your theme?" And I thought about it. I was like, "No." And it's like, "Okay, here's some other endings that you could do that probably would be more on theme." I didn't like any of them,
Mhm.
but it inspired me to come up with another one. And I said, "Wait, what about this? Oh, yeah, that'll work." Okay, now I knew what I was going towards, and then I'm like, "Okay, but let's first cut out the fat." So then we reworked the first 80 pages, got it down to 60, and then kept going. I finished that script. I started this in January. I'm about to finish a fifth script in in 4 or 5 months. It's insane.
I mean, it's amazing. One, As an AI, I love that you refer to it as we wrote this, not it. Um, how long now had you not used it? What do you think the time frame would have been to crank out those same pages?
Oh, I mean, I probably would do two in a year, maybe. And even so, I wasn't that super motivated to go back and do all this hard work. Um, one of the scripts I actually was working with a friend. He was helping me with the story and the outline, and then I was going to write the script. So, uh, you know, uh, he wasn't always available.
Hmm.
The AI is always available. People
Hmm.
don't always want to be helpful. AI always wants to be helpful. In fact, I have to often tell it, calm down, calm down. I'm not ready to start scripting yet. If I'm doing an outline, like, no, 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 let's just keep going on the outline. Like, it's too eager. The way I describe it sometimes, it's a writing partner whose feelings you don't have to care about.
Exactly.
And it's the amount of work you can do is off the charts. And people say, well, it's not, it's writing it for you. I go, no, no, no. I go, I'm going to save my chat, I'm going to save my prompts and my back and forth with it. I am so conversational with it, but also you'll see it's all being driven by me. And then anything it spits out, I'm taking control of it and rewriting it. And it makes mistakes galore. And it's not always, sometimes it'll write a scene and then there's a character who died 5 scenes ago. Why are they in this scene? It's not a flashback. And, oops, I'm sorry. You're right. I should have caught that. But it doesn't matter. It's inspiring. And that's the biggest thing. And that's why I'm able to keep, I'm excited to sit down and start working. And, that's one of the biggest things about it is just getting me excited to be sitting there doing this.
Oh, yeah, it's always found it energizing to have like a selfless partner who is just feeding back, almost mirroring you and your creative process and being able to offer something to the page. But they always say, drama is easy, comedy is hard, and like comedy is like a uniquely human thing. Has ChatGPT been able, has it ever made you laugh? Has it ever given you a situation where you're like, all right, I'll give it up. That's kind of funny.
I hate to admit it, but yeah, sometimes it absolutely makes me laugh. Sometimes it definitely comes up. It'll often like start out like on one level and then say, "Would you like to try to amp it up? Would you like to, ramp up the comedy?" Or in some of the cases with these scripts, there's a lot of horror. So I've got a horror movie that's like strict horror. I've got a horror comedy, and then I've got one that's more of a comedy than anything that has some supernatural elements to it. And yeah, it comes up with funny stuff, for sure. Do I think I'm funnier than it? Yes. Do I think, I'm going to be able to rewrite their joke, even if it's a decent joke? Like, I'll say, okay, that was good, but check this out. And then I'll tinker with it. And then it'll be like, oh, chef's kiss, chef's kiss. I get a lot of chef's kisses from it. The thing that's also hilarious is how it takes on the tone of the script and the tone of how you interact with it. Like one of my movies is like filthy. It's like just a filthy movie. And now when it would write back to me, it would start cursing in the responses. Like fucking yeah. And I'm like, it's taken on the tone of that script, which is amazing. And then if something's more serious, it speaks more seriously. Yeah, which is mind blowing.
That's interesting. So I was going to ask if you found that there are any, if you've run into any limitations with it, if there are any things like, oh, it won't say this, it won't do that. It's not conceiving of, in other words, it can work within this frame. It's an LLM. It is built on previous films. It's not doing anything innovative. Or have you not bumped into any walls? Or if you have bumped into any walls, are they kind of like, all right, this is actually going to make me be more creative to work around that wall?
Yes. So I've noticed a few things it's not so good at. Yeah, there's definitely like Like, for example, if you want to do like a fun and games montage in your beginning of your second act, it's like, okay, you've built up to a certain thing, and now it's like, let's just do a little montage to show this thing in action. Or in the horror movie, I wanted to do a flashback of a montage sequence to show how this evil has perpetuated throughout the years. But in both cases, it was terrible. The ideas that came were so either generic-y or just not cool. And I would kept trying to push it. No, go crazier, go crazier. And it would come up with crazy stuff that was so not relatable and whatever. So both times I said, you know what? Stop. I'll do it. And I figured out the montages and came up with what I think is better stuff. And I would put it back in, and then it would tell me, oh, yes, this is working really well. And then it would work off of what I gave it. It'd say, okay, you could do this, and maybe its little addition would be fun. And I'd be, oh, yeah, that's cool. All right, I like that. But crafting a good montage of like, yeah, it seems to be reliably terrible at that.
Okay. It is designed to be a positive feedback system. I know they just had to update ChatGPT because it was too complimentary and too many like, oh yeah, buddies.
Right.
Um, have you ever had it say like, this is terrible? I mean, like, I respect you, but no notes, one note. It's
Right. So it's so funny you said that because I did notice that too. And I'm like, look, you have to have confidence as a writer or else you won't do it. Do I think in the course of the 30 years I've been writing screenplays and stuff, do I think I've gotten good and do I think I'm a good writer? Yes. Do I think I'm putting quality stuff into it? Yes. So when it's complimentary, but I did start to wonder like, is it always complimentary or whatever? So then what I did was I had some stuff that either somebody else had sent me or just I think I even wrote something just terrible on purpose and I put it in there and I was like, what do you think? And I gotta be honest, it said it needed work.
okay.
So it didn't say it was terrible, and it didn't say don't do it, and it didn't say give up, but it did say it needs work, but it was like happy to help me try to figure it out. And then I'd say, you know what? I don't think this is that good. I think I'm going to just not do this. And then it was like, you know what? That's not the worst idea. Like
Okay.
it was willing to also say it wasn't going to fight me on it. Like, no, 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 this is gold. We must spin it. No, it was like, okay, yeah, I could see why you would say that. So that's the worst I think I've gotten out of it. But it is definitely built to be a positive, reinforcement machine, so to speak.
No, I know as a screenwriter, you've kind of trained to sort of show, don't tell, avoid exposition. But you also moved into podcasting, which is not a visual medium
I
at
don't
all.
know.
It's pretty much all word based. When you're approaching, I'm assuming you approach writing them differently. Do you approach when you're working with AI to create these things, or you have a different focus in terms of like, you know, no chatter on the screenplays, but we're doing a podcast, so we have to sort of visually describe what's happening.
The only thing, so I don't use AI for the podcast stuff. Partly because the podcasts I do are either, well, you know what? That's not 100% true. I've used it for research, like with the Oscars thing. For example, we were doing the 1951 Oscars for the 1950s movies. So the big battle was between All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard. So I did ask it like, hey, give me a nice concrete why these two movies have stood the test of time, how they're similar, how they're different, why about what about Eve might have won versus Sunset Boulevard, and just academically, giving me information that I could then pull from to use in some of my speaking. But the informational podcasts, like Who Smarted, and we do this one, Mysteries About True Histories, which is about math and stuff, and those have to be very factual and very, like AI, Chat GPT and the others do sometimes stretch the truth or come up, makes things up. And like, there's a lot of, that's the one area where I'm like, you know what? Probably not gonna use it so much for that. Because, I'm just afraid it might give me some information that's not true, and I don't want to have to go and fact check if I'm going to have to fact check it anyway, I might as well just start there. But so I tend not to use it for those things. But I will do, like, we do a thing for my Who Smarted, we do a thing called Smarty Q, which is just a little, for subscribers only. It's a quick little thing where kids will submit questions that don't rise to the level of a full episode, but they just want to know the answer. Why do they people say cats have 9 lives? So I will ask chat to do an answer for that question, and I will make sure I say you have to give me a citation, at least 2 links to something that I can look up and see where you got that answer from. And so it's good for that a small thing, but like a larger thing, I don't do. Um, to answer your question, like sometimes like an ad, I'll get a brief from a company with their talking points, and they want a minute ad. So I will put that into chat, and I will say, write me a 1 minute ad, audio only for a podcast. And the person that's going to be saying it is the host of the podcast, and here's what their deal is, or it might be an actor from the podcast. And I'll specify audio only because it'll start to give me visuals if I don't. And then they'll spit something out, and then I'll do a quick little rewrite pass on it. But mostly I've been working with it for screenplays. And yeah, it's been eye-opening.
Now, a lot of the podcasts are sort of a children education focus. It's like learning about science and history. Now, do you see a role or teaching, or how should AI, or give any thought to how AI should be taught to children, how it should be integrated into, is it like, you know, like you can't use a calculator until you do all the math on pen and pencil. You can't use the AI until you could write the book report on your own, or is it this tool exists, here's the best way to use it, and make, like you said, make it your partner, not your cheat.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, it's funny. We just did I don't think it might actually be airing on Friday, an episode of Who Smarted on AI. What is artificial intelligence? How does it work? What is it capable of? What are you using it now without even realizing it? And half these kids are playing video games that probably rely on AI and don't even realize it. I do think, it is the present and the future, so I feel like it should be taught the same way. It's like you used to not know something, now everybody can just Google it on their phone, and you get your answer. Now, does that make you stop thinking? You don't have to think or memorize anything anymore because now you can just, Google it or look it up. AI is another process in that. I do think it should be taught. And I do think, there's definitely telltale signs. I know when somebody sent me something that was written with AI, there's little glitchy things, there's little phrases that it always uses. The kicker is, anytime I hear the word kicker, I know that AI kicked it out to them, which is hilarious. I saw it on Jon Stewart was doing a report, and he's like, and the kicker is, and I'm like, oh my God, Jon Stewart's staff is using AI to help write, monologues and jokes and stuff. But the point is, it's here. I was with a friend, and he was like, I was explaining to him my renaissance with AI, and he was like, oh, he's like a year or two older than me, and he's like freaking out. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, it's a tool. You work with it like a tool. Like you used to not have a hammer, and now you have a hammer, and it's easier to get the thing in. Like it's a tool. You use it. And he's like, well, I guess you're right. I mean, it is coming, so maybe. And I'm like, it's not coming. It's here. It's here. We're 5 years too late. My daughter's been using this for 3 years at least. Like, dude, it's not coming. It's here. So yes, I think we need to embrace it and get kids to, teach them how to use it to help them, but not do everything for them. And yeah, it's tricky. I mean, that's what technology, everything in technology, right? It's helping you do less in a way. So,
And also, I feel like technology has always shaped perception and how we interact, whether it's going from handwriting to, using a typewriter and a computer, and
right.
at each stage, whether it's even when you're creating material, when things started writing for films, then everything got modified writing for television, then it probably changes again writing for a podcast. Do you see AI shaping one like story structure? Is that going to evolve? And then is there just sort of like a different mediumism message level of interaction that might come across? In other words, is there going to be another change in how we consume information and media because of this new advance, this new technology?
Right. I mean, look, doing an Oscar podcast and looking at the older films and then the newer films, I'm definitely a staunch believer that films have gotten a lot worse for the most part, in terms of the content, but like, the spectacle of what you can put on the screen is obviously much better. But do I think, I watch a lot of film noir where there's no effects, there's nothing, it's just people in rooms talking at each other, and the dialogue is fantastic. But then to today's audience, that would probably be very boring, and they need more. I think the AI is going to evolve with the media and the way we consume media and stuff. I will say this, like, if you're a good writer and you use AI, you'll probably get a good script, just as if you would have written a good script. You would just get a good script faster. If you're a great writer, you'll probably get a great script faster. But if you're a bad writer, you're just going to get a bad script faster because it's not able to just write the script. If you just told it what to do, and I had a friend that did that, and he told it what to do, and I read like a couple pages. I was like, no, this is just, and you just told it to write something, and it wrote something, and this is just garbage. Like, if you were a good writer, you would rewrite the crap out of this, but you're not. So you're not going to be able to do that. So I do think there's going to be a lot more scripts and a lot more things that people have to sift through, a lot more garbage. But I do think, the good writing will always be good writing. I don't know if it'll ever get to the point where it's just spitting it out on its own, although yeah, it might. And then, yeah, that's where it gets a little crazy. Like, oh, are people going to have jobs or whatever? Or maybe people will just, yeah, the job of prompting or the job of rewriting AI. Or, I do think, yeah, eventually we'll all be working for the AI.
Well, I mean, that brings up a few things. One, I mean, is prompt writing going to become an art form until its own, like a director needed to know how to use the camera and lenses and lighting to achieve the effect? Is prompt writing going to become the new guide in terms of, if not so much getting the script you want, but getting like the text to visual? And like, are we developing a new specialization?
I think so. I think so. I think I feel like I've gotten very gifted at it. And like I feel like I'm teaching my friends, contemporaries how to use it. And they hadn't thought how to use it like I do. I even had, what was it? So I started a script. I just had a question. I typed in, what is the worst thing you could do to somebody else? And it was like, oh, that's an intriguing question. And, like, murder, torture, this, it came up with things and reasons why. And then I said, okay. And then at the end, it said, why do you ask this? And I said, because that's going to be the first line of the new horror script that I'm writing. And it said, oh, I'm intrigued. I was like, okay, good. Now I'm going to take what you said and I'm going to shoot down why all your answers are not the best answer. And now it's like getting excited and it wants to like know what am I thinking. And then I tell it, I get into the specifics, and now it's like, oh my God, this is great. We need to write this. What do you have an idea for the first scene? And I'm like, yeah, I have an outline. Here's my first scene, and I put all that in, and working together, like, and it kept wanting to write the script, and I kept having to say, no, I've got most of an outline, but I don't have all of it, and let's just keep working. Let's just keep working. And we go back and forth and back and forth, and it's pitching me things, and I'm pitching it things, and you know, eventually we had the entire outline, and at the very last thing I did was I was like, okay, now summarize everything we did and put it into a three-act outline. I want to see all the beats, including all the things that we decided on, and it spat it out. And I said, okay, great. I am now ready to start writing the script. But what I did was I copied and pasted our entire back and forth. And this took, I'd say at least a week or two, this whole back and forth, which by the way, cut down the normal month of outlining. Now it was only like a week or two.
Mhm.
Um, but I took that and I put that into a Word document. It was 145 pages.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? This could almost be a manual. Like I could almost like I titled it like how a professional writer uses ChatGPT. And they could see how the back and forth worked and how I would reject their ideas and reshape things and make connections, but then take an idea and say, that's not bad, but I would do a little bit different, blah, blah, blah. This is good, but it should come earlier, and all the things that I know as a professional screenwriter and storyteller, like, all the fixes and all the changes and all the tweaks, but it was spitting out a lot of stuff and keeping this dialogue going. And this is the kind of conversation I would have on the phone with a friend who's a writer. There's no law against that. And, because it's a machine, but also I have to be, careful of my friend's feelings. I could just tell the machine, it sucks. No, 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 don't do it. You're in the wrong zone, you know. So
Well, it's interesting because, the less writer strike, AI featured prominently in terms of getting concessions and like this, and there's a real resistance against, the shrinking writers' room. Is is this a matter of inevitability? Were the guild's protests grounded in some level, or is it just a matter of things have to be reframed to accept this is a tool for you to use? Or I don't know, what's your take on sort of the resistance to using the technology?
I mean, I totally understand. And you don't want to like, you know, do anything to limit jobs and have people not work. I mean, it is funny though, the writer's strike. I mean, I'm in the Writers Guild and it's like, unlike like miners, oh, the mine is dangerous. Every time we go in the mine, we're risking our lives. We don't get paid well. We're gonna die of black lung disease. We need to strike for better benefits. And they go on strike and the mine loses money and the boss, says, all right, fine, fine. And they make a new deal and everybody goes back to work. The writers, that's not how it works. Like most of the writers are not working anyway. And then you've got a handful of people that are really good. And yeah, sure, they change some things, but it's not going to affect most people because they're not getting paid to write. It's a very small percentage of the writers are actually writing. Uh, but that being said, I do think, yeah, you don't want to do anything that's going to even. It's already a small number of people that have jobs, and now you're making it even smaller with AI. But again, I don't think AI replaces people. I do think people will use AI as a tool the way they suddenly were able to use the internet as a tool. And it might give them more ideas to sift through and pick out the good ones. And it might be helpful. Like I have a joke premise. I need a punchline. I can't think of it. Put it into AI and it spits out 50 things. Most of them are going to suck or not work, but it might inspire the one that does, or you combine two. I mean, do I think it's an inevitability? I think it's inevitable that most writers will eventually be working with AI on their own. Do I think, you can have a writer's room of all AI? No. Do I think it'll, replace just everything done by AI? I don't know. I mean, even the algorithms that they use for, Netflix, like you'll probably like this movie. No. Like there's so much wrong. Will they fix it? I don't know. I think I'll be dead by then.
Well, I think to continue on that idea, I feel that AI is almost democratizing the process. It's lowering a lot of barriers to entry to writing, to filmmaking, to television. Do you see this as now it's going to be an explosion of good things coming out of it, or is it just going to be like, here's a tidal wave of garbage, maybe you'll get one more good thing out of it? And is it, I don't know, is there going to be a separate field just curating the good from the bad?
There might. Like I said, I have a friend who just told it to write a thing, and he was like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Dude, I think it's crap, and I think you're an asshole for doing that. Like, you're not doing it right. You have no business writing a script." Uh, you know, Here's the thing: you get better at writing by writing. Like, I'm much better than I was when I started. Uh, unfortunately, you start when you're young and they tend to work with you more when you're young. I wish I was getting more of the work that I got now when I'm older and better writer than I did when I was in my 20s. I think I'm much better. But you get better at writing by writing. And if you're doing more writing by if working with AI is getting you to do more writing, the only problem is, yeah, if it's giving you feedback and saying it's great when it's really not, and if you are taking a lot of what it says and presenting it as your own, you're not really writing. You have to do it the right way. But I do think there's going to be a tidal wave of garbage as a lot of people are able to spit out things and like I said, if you're a good writer, you'll get a good script faster. If you're a great writer, you'll get a great script faster. If you're a bad writer, you'll get a bad script faster. And it'll probably help a lot of bad writers who would have quit 20, 30, 40 pages in. They'll slog through to the end because it's doing so much of the work for them. So now, yeah, somebody's unfortunately has to sift through a lot of garbage. Um, but look, I mean, there's already a ton of scripts like that are on, every manager's office, every agent's office, every, there's screenwrite, readers at every studio or whatever, if it even makes it that far, are just lined with script after script after script that are coming in. And these are by people that, before AI that were sitting down and finishing full scripts on their own and calling themselves writers. You know, uh, good scripts will always rise to the top. At least that's the hope.
So then if you were talking to someone, like your younger self, if you were coming up right now, is there
Yep.
an advice to someone saying who they want to write, but they recognize the potential of AI, is there an advice, there's a suggestion of, in other words, way back in the early days, it was write your script, send it out, submit it, get it past all this to try and get it read, to made and optioned, and there's a whole process.
Right.
Do you feel that process has changed? What would you recommend to someone who's sort of just starting out saying, I want to be a screenwriter now?
I mean, there was the famous thing, like, some people like there's the rules, right? The rules of screenplay writing and where you need to be in your script, and your act one starts on page 24 and act two and there's a midpoint, and and so many young writers are like, oh, I don't want to follow those rules. And it's like they would always say, like, learn the rules, be able to write within those rules before you can break them. And if AI is going to be your cheat code, like, then you're not going to get better at writing. You're not going to be a good writer. You're going to be somebody who's using AI as the crutch. And yeah, if you finish your script, it probably will not go much further because it won't be good enough. It won't feel human enough. The characters won't be developed enough. The story, you might have some cool things, but I would still try to encourage people to do as much as they can on their own and then put it into the AI and then see what the AI says and then take from it the strengths and the weaknesses, because that's what you would do with a reader. You let somebody read your script. Now, at least, oh my God, like, I don't have to read everybody's script. Like, they could put it into the AI, and the AI will read the script and give them an assessment. If anything, yeah, I wish the AI could be a little more brutal and let them know, like, if something's not good or whatever. But it does kind of do that. It does do strengths and weaknesses. And if I put something bad in there, the strengths are very few and far between, and the weaknesses is a much longer list. And then AI is like willing to help, which, unfortunately, yeah, you're encouraging someone to continue with garbage. But again, maybe that helps them become a better writer. And then they start to see, you know what,
Right.
I'm doing a lot of struggling and the weaknesses are still popping up, and maybe this isn't the best idea. So I do think, yeah, starting out early, as much writing as you can on your own, don't have it do anything for you. Do it, maybe give you notes, give you feedback.
Right. Now, do you think is there a tipping point? Because right now it's like, all right, I give it my thing, it writes it back to me, it gives me ideation, it comes up with things, and I say write a page, and then now, but is there a notion of like where we've gone from this is a tool to a partner to like in that group project where it's doing most of the work? Like it is now the AI's project and I'm assisting it. And then is that leading the way towards almost like a self-directed where your friend goes, write me a script about the Titanic, and he goes, okay, and now it cranks it
Right.
out.
Right. I mean, look, if you're using the word for, do this for me, I think that's where your tipping point is. Like I always like look, here's the thing too. If you're a real writer, right? You want to be the last one to touch it. You want it to be yours. If you're not a real writer, if you're kind of pretending or you want the trappings and the fun that comes with being called a writer, but you're not a real writer, then you'll have it do things for you and you'll just tell it, write me this thing, and you'll be like, yeah, good enough. A real writer to me wants control, wants to be able to be like, no, these are my words. The way, like, an author writes a book, gives it to an editor, and an editor will make all kinds of changes and switches and this and that. But when the author reads their work back, it feels like their work that a lot of it almost goes invisible. And that's what authors say all the time. Like, yeah, the editor did a pass and they changed all kinds of, but it's mine. All the words are mine. It feels like my book. It's just been better, cleaned up, so that's what you want the relationship to be. You never want it to do things for you. You never want to turn in the thing that the AI came up with. Like everything it gives me, I'm doing extensive passes on it, and I'm overruling it sometimes, or it'll offer me, which is also a great thing to be able to do. Like I think a scene that I just did, it spat out something based on very precise notes, including lines of dialogue, and it spat it out. And I said, okay, yeah, this isn't bad. I'll take it from here. And then I rewrite the scene and I put it back in. It says, oh, yes, this is much better. And I love this. I love that, blah, blah, blah. Oh, the last line, though, you could change it and make it this. And I'm like, no. The reason why is because the character would A, never say that, and B, there's a double meaning to this, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, yes. Oh, that double meaning. Oh, yeah, right. This is great. Okay, yeah, definitely keep that. I go, I was going to keep it, but thank you. I appreciate it, whatever. And, it's like I want to be in control. If you're a real writer, you want that control. Like a real writer gets mad on set when the director's changing and the actors are changing, and it's like, oh, what are they doing? But sometimes it comes out better. A lot of times it comes out better. Okay, great. And other times you're like, but the point is, yeah, if you're a real writer, you want that control. You don't want AI to write your thing for you. It has to be a tool that works with you.
What is now, do you have, is there a dream project coming up, a future project that you have in mind that you're very excited about? And is AI going to play a role in it, or is it just sort of like it's all coming together now? It's
You are a mind reader. It's hilarious that you said that. So th each of the projects I've worked on with the AI, each one grew a little more in importance to me or in like the first one I did is the lightest, like goofiest. Something happened to me in real life, and I actually told part of the story on one of my podcasts, and I got a lot of feedback. Oh, you got to write a movie on that. You got to write a movie on that. And I'm like, it's silly. But it's a horror movie, like, which a lot of horror movies kind of silly and whatever. And I was like, all right, you know what? Let me see if I can do that. So I did write the outline, and that was the first thing that AI helped with. Then I had it help me with the two that hadn't been finished. So now I could say, okay, at least I wrote the end on both of the scripts that had been lingering. Then I started this other idea, which was a little more intense, and I'm like working on it. But I've got this other idea that I've been kicking around for a long time. In fact, I've even been working on it with another human. And part of me is like, man, it would probably get done a lot faster if I did it with the AI. But A, I don't want to screw over the guy I was working with. And B, I'm like, I don't know, this one I'm being a little more precious with. I might not go to AI until at least the first, at least until, sorry, at least until a first draft is done. For some reason, yeah, this one is a little heavier, but I did put some into the AI just to see if my outline was feeling good or whatever. And it did have one or two suggestions that I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, actually, this scene in the third act could be cooler if I added this element to it. Thank you, AI. So there was, a little bit, but yeah, I'm still as enthusiastic as I am, even I have, even I have a sort of boundaries.
Keep building the energy. You don't get
Absolutely.
run
It
down.
makes it, yeah. I mean, because a lot of my writing I have to do at the end of the day after I've done a bunch of other things. So the less tedious that can be, even if it's just describing the room, the bedroom, interior, it's a bedroom, and it just spits out a fucking bedroom. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's good. All right, whatever. Yeah, I don't care about the curtains and the whatever, but like if there's one object that needs to be there, sure, I'll add that. But, for the most part, a lot of the tedious stuff that takes time, it handles some of that for you, which is great.
Cool. You know what? On an odd human tangent, do you find it makes writing a less lonely experience? Because I've spoken with other writers here, like you, are it's you and versus the blank page,
Right.
and it's this quiet, and there could be nothing, and now is this process of being able to engage with this intelligence, sort of improve the overall. Does it bring more joy to the experience, or is it just still a grind?
No, it definitely brings more joy, and it definitely makes me feel like again, I treat it like it's a friend. In fact, I have a friend in mind usually when I work with the AI, because it is a friend I've talked about movies and stuff with all the time, and writing, and have given them scripts to read of mine and get feedback from. And so I kind of almost hear the AI in their tone and in their voice, and I talk to it like I'm talking to my friend, and I'm like try to be respectful, and I try to be nice, and I try to be, have that back and forth. But I know that I can be harsher if something doesn't work. I don't have to say, "Oh, that's good," but actually, I was thinking that I could be like, "No, no, no, terrible. No, no, you're going the wrong way. I don't like any of that. Forget all that just happened." And then, so it's like I said, it's a writing partner whose feelings you don't have to care about. But the more conversational and the more back and forth you are with it the way you would talk to a friend, and the more you tell it, the better results you get. I know people that are very terse with it, or very, one or two lines. And I'm like, no, no, expand on all of that. The more you tell it, the more it'll help you. And yeah, it does become less lonely. I feel like I'm working with my friend.
And AI is your friend. Adam, I want to thank you for your time and joining us today. Last question. What is your favorite comedy and why is it Short Circuit?
No disassemble.
All right, Ed. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We hope we can talk again soon.
You got it, buddy.
All right, thank you.